Hello everyone, welcome back to MPO Plays On. This week we feature the Clarinet Quintet by Johannes Brahms. And joining me to talk about that a little bit is our principal bass clarinet, Mr. Chris Bosco. Hi Chris, thanks for joining me here.
Gerard.
Well, okay. Let's talk about you for a little bit, all right, Chris? You've been with the MPO for quite some time.
Since the very beginning.
This is 1998.
Yes.
It's when it opened, right?
Yeah.
And you hail from New York City. You're a native New Yorker.
Born and raised, yeah.
And, well, how did you go from New York? It's not exactly a hop, skip, and a jump, is it? I mean, go from New York to Charleston, where you were working before you came to the MPO.
Right.
And then to Malaysia. What's the story? What was that all about?
I had been in a few orchestras before. I played in the Colorado Symphony. I was playing in the Charleston Symphony. In between, I had done these tours of Asia with a chamber orchestra out of New York. It was sponsored by Toyota. They had these Toyota Classics.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And they were sending orchestras around the Asian Pacific region, wherever they had manufacturing or sales. And there was a conductor in New York who was a Japanese guy who had sponsorship by them, and so he put together this great little chamber orchestra of people from the New York Philharmonic, Metropolitan Opera, some of the freelancers. I was a freelancer playing on Broadway. And we did these tours of the region, and I did 2 of them of Southeast Asia with him, and one of the stops was Malaysia. And I loved it. It was a long time ago. That was in maybe 92 or something like that.
This is long before MPO
I can't remember. It was a long time ago. Yeah. Long time ago. And I was really impressed. It was a very different place then. It was very charming. It was like a city carved out of the jungle. You know, I mean, really green and lush, and the food was amazing and cheap. And and it was. I really loved it. I was really impressed. And I said on one of these tours, I said to a friend of mine, "Man, if they ever had an orchestra here, I would audition."
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did.
You felt that way when you came.
I did.
Wow.
So years go by. I'm playing in the Charleston Symphony, and I'm looking at the ads in the Union newspaper.
Yep.
Malaysia Philharmonic starting, they have worldwide auditions, and I was like, there it is. There it is.
There's my gig.
I remembered
right there.
it, and I'm going. And so I wrote in and I auditioned, and
you've been here ever since.
And I've been here forever.
Okay, let's go right to the heart of the matter here.
All right.
Brahms. Right? We were just saying earlier, we don't know. I personally don't know any musician who doesn't love Brahms.
Everybody.
We just love him.
Yeah.
Right? And there was a point in my life when I was just way into his symphonies and all the orchestral stuff. Double concerto, violin concerto. And my friend Tim Frank from Hong Kong Philharmonic told me, dude, if you like his symphonies, wait till you get a hold of his chamber music. It's gonna knock your socks off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this one is definitely no exception. It's an amazing piece. Hearing you guys perform it was the first time I'd ever heard it performed live.
Wow, it was the first time I ever performed it live, actually.
Then there we go. Why the Brahms Clarinet Quintet? I mean, we know it's important to clarinetists, right? But for you in particular, you've been principal bass clarinet of this orchestra for some time, and you've been, like I said, you're a grizzled old veteran, So why now, and why the piece?
I've always wanted to perform this piece, I guess, in the back of my head. I remember from when I was a student hearing from my teacher, everybody can sort of play Brahms, but you really need to have lived before you can actually play Brahms.
Okay.
Because there's so much behind the music, so much emotion, so much stuff. Brahms had an interesting life, let's say.
Yeah.
And it comes through, and you need to have experienced some things. And I always had that in my head, that when I got older, I wanted to really try to get back to these pieces and try to play them. I'd never studied the quintet in school somehow. I never got to that. So now it's completely fresh. I'd only played it in sight reading things for fun here and there, but been a long time. And I always wanted to get out there and just see what I could do with it. Plus, my great love has always been playing chamber music.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not something you could really easily make a living at as a clarinet player, or as anybody really, but particularly for clarinet, there's not. So, whenever you have a chance to do a thing like this, it's so fulfilling. And this piece has so much in it. It was written near the end of his life. He had come out of retirement. He'd stopped writing, and then I'm not sure if it's because he heard this clarinet player who was just an amazing player of the time, or he just got to know him and was inspired by his playing, or what it was. But he then he came back and started writing, and the first things he wrote were the Clarinet Trio and the Clarinet Quintet. This is my understanding. I think it's accurate. And he wrote a few other things, and then finished up with the sonatas. And this was the last major piece of chamber music he wrote, was the quintet.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm pretty sure of. And you hear his whole life experience in this piece, I think. And it makes it something you can really sink your teeth into. And I just really wanted to give it my try here,
When was your first time to encounter the piece? We've all got our own personal stories of when was the first time you heard whatever piece. And with this particular one, can you sort of recall?
Well, I would say, I used to just go to the library and take out records.
Those round
people don't know what
things.
Those are anymore, but LPs and of any classical music I could find, and I would just listen to everything all the time, and I found it and I also used to go to old record stores in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Once I got it to Juilliard, and I was in the city all the time, and there was an old record store, and I found some recording of this piece. I think I'd heard that the original one I heard was from the library with, I think, Carl Leister, from Berlin. Yeah, who at the time was a big idol of mine. As I heard recordings more and more, I heard him, I was very impressed with that kind of playing and his sound and the sweetness, and I really wanted to play like that. And then, I think that was the first one I heard. It was Carl Leister's recording, but then later on I found a recording of Carl Leister's teacher.
Wow.
A really old recording.
Yeah.
And it was his teacher, Heinrich Geuser, I think was his name.
Okay.
And I got that. I just bought that for a few dollars and listened to it, and it was amazing. It was like Leister, but something different. It was very similar. Beautiful recording, as I recall. And I really loved the sound and the way the clarinet could just blend in with the strings and ride above. And it was very inspiring, and always had that in my mind, I think. So for this one, I didn't listen to any recordings. I haven't listened to it in years, actually.
Okay.
I don't do a whole lot of classical music listening at home, actually, because I play it every day. But I hadn't heard it, and when we were going to play this, I decided not to listen to any recordings. I have that in my head from all those years ago.
Okay.
Those sounds and whatever. I don't remember exactly the tempos that they took or anything like that. I just wanted to look at the music now, fresh, and just see what I do with it, with whatever experiences I've had in life, and not play it like somebody else does or whatever.
Yeah. Which is an important point, actually, for a lot of people. I mean, starting out, you're always worried about, what are they going to think? Or, they're going to say that my Allegro wasn't as spirited as
I was worried about that.
But actually, that's how personal this all really is.
Yeah, but I wanted it to just be, I may be crazy, I don't really know. I still haven't listened to anybody else afterwards to see if I think you're probably going to get into a range with this. I mean, the music tells you what it wants, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
But I maybe have done some crazy things. I don't know. I hope so.
That's great. Okay, this quintet covers a pretty wide range of emotions. We can nerd out all day, or I could actually nerd out all day about Brahms's amazing abilities with lines and harmonies, and how he basically makes music not sound the way it looks on paper, because it never does.
Yeah. It's very confusing.
It is very confusing.
The beat is never where the beat is.
Where the line is. Yeah.
Right.
It's sort of, it just escapes the cage, and the tyranny of the bar line, as it were. But what his music is so capable of doing, and what makes it so beloved and held in such high esteem, is the emotional impulse that it creates within the listener.
Yeah.
Like we were listening to your performance a couple of days ago, and it was like, man, it's so sweet, yet it hurts so much.
Yeah.
So he's able to do that. I mean, whether it's the timbre of the clarinet that makes that happen, or if it's intervallic, is it harmonic, or is it all those things put together, or is it the time signature or the rhythms? I mean, there's so many things there that he just knows how to craft into a piece in order to create a very subjective,
Yeah.
emotional
I
response.
mean, I think all of his music, to me, has depth of emotion,
Yeah.
and more so as he, but this is so late in life for him, and he'd been through so much, and his craft was so perfected.
Yeah, yeah.
That I think it's a combination of all of those things. He just was able to get what was in here on the page. Well, also he's quite a perfectionist, from what I understand.
Yeah, he really slaves over every little thing.
I read somewhere that he threw away a great deal of his manuscripts. He burned them. Like nothing was good enough. That he was so. There's this kind of mentality going, and he's now late in life. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he wants, and he knows how to get what he wants out of the instrument. So.
Yeah, he wasn't like Brahms the young upstart anymore.
Yeah.
He was the almighty Brahms. And,
Yeah. I've read people describing this piece as autumnal because it was written late in his life,
Oh, yeah.
and it has that reflective quality. It's a bit of a cliche, but I think it is reflective. I think that,
Yes.
I mean, for me, my personal, the way, when I looked at this fresh, I just saw and felt playing it, this kind of the sweetness, like looking back on life. And then these moments of just like, oh yeah, but this is the really hard stuff that life throws at you.
Yeah,
and
like
these moments
out.
of despair.
Yes,
I mean, it was really, it's almost schizophrenic with the emotions.
And heaven forbid, sentimental.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a tremendous piece. We talk about, like, in art galleries, for example, you've got these great works of art, and you walk into an exhibit, and okay, you know why Picasso's there, you know why Michelangelo's there, you know why all these great master works are placed in an exhibit and curated. This particular piece, I mean, the great pieces of music are just like that, great works of art. And they deserve a spot on every curator's like must-have list.
Yeah.
For you, in very personal terms, what makes the Brahms Clarinet Quintet every music lover's must listen?
Wow. Well, I mean, he what he achieved in this piece, it doesn't, to me, first of all, I don't see this as a clarinet quintet.
We just call it that, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, it is that. Yeah. But what Brahms did here, and I feel like he was inspired by Mozart. He was a big fan of Mozart. They used the clarinet, some of the best of any composers, really. They really, he used the clarinet so beautifully. He knew what to get out of it, and he was able to use it in this piece where it's not string quartet accompanying clarinet.
That's right. It doesn't feel like that at all.
It isn't at all.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I don't see it that way.
Yeah.
I feel that this is absolutely a string quintet with the clarinet being another string, with the limitations that a woodwind has, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, there's moments where you just want to, and you can do it so well. His writing lets you just blend into the string sound. You're not riding on top. You're in the string sound, and then you can soar above the string sound, float on top of them. And he wrote it in a way to give you the opportunity to do all this kind of stuff it just feels right. And it's a real masterpiece in how he used the instruments and how he orchestrated and how he conveyed emotion. He just had complete control of this. I feel like, as chamber music goes. For any combination, I feel like this is really on a pantheon, as you said.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a towering piece.
Yeah.
It's a little intimidating to play, honestly.
And maybe that's why it took you this long to get around to it.
Maybe.
But I'm glad you did. Chris, thanks for joining me here. And friends, we hope you enjoy our performance of the Brahms Clarinet Quintet.